everyone. I would invite you to rise in body or in spirit and turn in the gray hymnal to number 293 to join in singing our opening music, O Star of Truth, hymn number 293.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Hi, my name is Henrike Flores-Bos, and I serve this congregation as president of the Board of Trustees. And I'm sure you all have noticed that in the past 5 months or so, the person in the pulpit has said some variation of, I'm part of the sabbatical ministry team filling in while our senior minister, Reverend Manish, is on a well-deserved sabbatical. And today will be very, very different, because today it is my absolute pleasure to welcome back to our pulpit our very own settled senior minister, Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti.
Thank you, Enrique, for the warm welcome back. And I'm delighted to officially be back from my sabbatical. How good it is to see each of you here. Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I have come to realize and appreciate that there are newer folks among us who have never heard me speak before and have never met me. So I'm especially offering a warm hello from my end to you, if we're still getting acquainted in that way. I serve our community as senior minister, and it's my privilege to welcome you this Sunday on behalf of myself and the entire chancel team, which includes today our Chalice singers. Thank you for being with us, our singers. Whether you are with us here in the sanctuary in person or live streaming from home right now or watching at a later time on demand, we are delighted that you've made the choice to be with us and with one another in community. Our congregation has been meeting continuously here in Ann Arbor since 1865, helping bring alive a message and vision of what a liberal and free faith can be. One in which each of us is free to explore and discover for ourselves what it means to be human as we support one another on that journey through our collective and shared love and care. If you are newer to our community or it's your very first time, and if you're joining us in person in the sanctuary, first off, welcome. It takes a lot of courage to show up in a community that you may not have experienced before, and we're glad that you're here and taking the opportunity to get to know us better. Following the conclusion of our service this morning, as you exit those double doors, the first room on the left is called the Redmond Room, and there will be members of our community and or our staff there to greet you and help you get to know our congregation and Unitarian Universalism better. If you're live streaming and this is your first or second time, you're still getting to know us better, now is a great opportunity. We invite you to enter into the chat, introduce yourself, and we are sure that there will be more experienced members of our community there waiting to warmly greet you. If you're watching on demand at a later time, please know that we would welcome your reaching out to Reverend Mandy Beal, our acting coordinator of the membership journey, or truly any member of our staff team up to and including myself. We'd be happy to be in direct dialogue with you further about Unitarian Universalism in general or our congregation more specifically. In addition, if you are newer to our community, we invite you to take just a moment and go to our website, go to UUAA.org/newcomer survey, and if you fill out the survey that's located there, that will help allow us to stay in communication with you. A couple of announcements as we deepen our time together. This Sunday next weekend is Earth Day weekend, and in support of that time, and which is one of our congregation's identified priority areas, our work together on climate and environmental justice. Our Friday Fun Night will have some Earth Day themes, and that is happening this upcoming Friday evening, April 19th at 6 p.m. If you've never been to one of these, it's a lot of fun. It starts out with an intergenerational dinner, and then after the dinner is concluded, there are some activities that take place. In addition, a week from today, on April 21st, our Sunday services will be Earth Day themed, with opportunities for deeper engagement in the social hall after both of the services, and after the second service, there'll be specific Earth Day activities for all ages that are planned for. So please join us next weekend for a variety of Earth Day related activities and celebrations. This Sunday, we're engaging in our question box, one of our question box Sundays. If you are newer to our community, I fully recognize that you may have no idea what's about to happen or what that entails. Don't worry, I'll help explain it all in further detail. For now, I invite each of us to find a place of centering and grounding in our hearts as we move more deeply into our time together this Sunday.
Hi friends, I'm so thankful to be here with you all today as we welcome more spring-like weather and gladly welcome Reverend Manish back from his sabbatical. In the spirit of welcome, I'd like to invite Mark Jagner, thank you for being prompt, Mark, onto the chancel to light the chalice with us this afternoon. As we light our chalice in the sanctuary this morning, we invite our online community members to light your own chalice at home. As you do so, you can share in the chat the chalice is lit in with your location. In the spirit of community, let us now join together in these familiar words. Please join your voice with ours as we say, "We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace." Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Another way that we are reminded of our commitment to be in relationship with each other are the words of our community's covenant. Please join me as we say the words of our covenant together. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you.
As Reverend Manish mentioned, next Sunday we'll be celebrating Earth Day and all of our congregation's joy-filled work toward our Vision 2050 priority area of climate action and climate justice, as well as our current Year Zero campaign. As part of this celebration, each Sunday this month, we will join in singing the words to hymn number 377, In Greening Lands Begins the Song. The words will be projected on the TV screens here in the sanctuary, or can be found in the gray hymnal, and I suspect you might know the tune already. So, would you please rise in body or in spirit and join me in singing the words to hymn number 377. Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote 7 principles, which we hold as strong values and moral guides. The 4th of these principles is a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, which sometimes requires us to ask big questions. Now, I may be new to Unitarian Universalism, but those who have known me longest, my parents, and I suspect especially my big siblings, would likely be the first to tell you that I have a long history of asking a lot of questions. Too many questions, they might be tempted to say. Today's story for all ages is the tale of another young person on her own search for truth and meaning. The Girl with Big, Big Questions, written by Britney Winn Lee, with illustrations by Jacob Suva. There once was a girl with twinkling eyes and a very curious mind. This girl was always asking questions whose answers weren't easy to find. The world is so very interesting. She wanted to learn all she could, from what makes a plane stay in the sky to what makes each person good. Her days were filled with adventures galore, since her mind was so full of wonder. How long can a turtle stay in its shell? Why does lightning come before thunder? Why can't people live on the moon? What happens to stars when they fall? When will you let me stay up all night? Why even have bedtime at all? What does the dog do while I'm away at school? Hey, how was the whole world made? And why do we have big hearts that can feel hurt and upset and afraid? Could I fly if I got a good running start? The nearest volcano is where? Are monsters real? What's Spanish for blue? Is it okay to cut my own hair? From the moment she opened her eyes for the day to the time she was tucked into bed, she'd ask and ask and ask and ask every question that popped into her head. At first, her neighbors, teachers, and friends tried to answer her wonder-filled mind. But after a while, their encouraging smiles were replaced by the rolling of eyes. She noticed her questions were making them tense, and one day her class hit their limit. After she asked a dozen things about clouds, the class hollered, "Please stop! Just quit it!" Embarrassed, the girl tried to quiet her thoughts and not raise a voice so curious, so that no one would be too uncomfortable, or even worse, furious. But one day, she found the nest of a bird built low and exposed near the ground. Why would a nest not be in a tree, she wondered, and then looked around. She was all by herself, with no one to ask. So she ran to the library shelves. She read about cities and lack of safe places for birds to build nests for themselves. Like hunting for treasure, she searched and learned more answers that made her frown. With an urgent report, she announced to her class, "There are not enough trees in this town." The class, now moved by this information, asked questions about how to embark on a project to help both the birds and their neighbors by planting more trees in their parks. The girl knew then that big questions are good, and answers aren't just things to know. They are things to discover alongside each other. Asking questions is how we all grow. The end. And now is the time in our service when we sing our children to their programs. I invite our elementary kids to follow their adult leaders out of the sanctuary and to the gathering spaces on the lower level as the congregation sings with love and affection. Oh, I will go, beloved, where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved, where you go, I will go. For your people are my people, your people are mine. Your people are my people, your divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your divine, my divine.
Welcome to one of our question box Sundays. Some of you are experienced hands at this Sunday and understand what's about to happen next. And for some of you, it might be your very first time participating. So for the folks who are brand new, I'm going to, please, the rest of you, indulge me for a moment as I go through how to participate. There were forms available for those who are physically present in the sanctuary as you were entering. If for any reason you did not get a form or something to write with and you need something to write with, please raise your hand now and an usher will come by with a form and or a pencil or pen. This is a Sunday on which you're going to help shape the reflections that I offer. It's an unscripted, impromptu Sunday based on questions that you submit that are relevant to your life and spiritual, ethical questions that you may be actively wondering or wrestling with right now. So this is a rare opportunity to directly have your questions that you're wondering about answered in a Sunday service. So I encourage you to, kind of take a moment to drop down and really be present to you, your life, what's been coming up. What are you wrestling with or trying to figure out interpersonally or in terms of what it means to be a human being at this point in time, or your relationship to the wider world or people you care about? What are those types of questions for you? I invite you to submit one question, so please try not to do long multi-part questions or explanations are not necessary, but as succinct as you can and as legibly written as you can manage, please. Any professionally appropriate question is fine. And I always appreciate that our community goes really deep with these questions. After this Sunday, I always review all the questions that were not answered, and I have yet to come across a question that was not relevant, profound, and deeply thoughtful. So thank you for being that kind of community that is so present to the needs of our time, and also you, what your life is about right now and what you're navigating right now. We ask on that form, in addition to the question that you're wondering that you'd like to submit, please provide your full name and contact details. Questions that are submitted without that will not be included in the service. Same goes true if you're live streaming right now. We invite you to participate as well. You can put into the chat your question and then include side by side with your question your full name and your email address. We have folks on the standby who will transcribe your question and include them in our physical question box side by side with the questions submitted here in person. So you'll have an equal chance to have your question pulled out of the question box as those who are here in the sanctuary this morning. Providing your name and contact details allows us to follow up as is occasionally needed or warranted depending on the situation. Sometimes there's a pastoral need expressed or something else, so please do include that. I will not read the names of questions submitted, the individual who submitted a question when I'm actually answering them, but you do have to provide those details in order to be included. I want to offer, because this is a question I've already gotten a bunch of times between last Sunday and today, there's no need to submit a question saying, Reverend Manish, how was your sabbatical, or what did you do during your sabbatical? I'm going to assume that a bunch of us are wondering that, and I will make that the first question I answer as we enter into that time together today. So don't waste your question. Think of something that is, really relevant and meaningful for you. When you're finished, please fold your question in half, pass it to the aisles, and the ushers will come down the aisles and collect the questions as they're approaching the aisles, as they're submitted. As a reminder, I only get to answer a small handful of questions live during the service. It's somewhere typically between 3 to 6. It depends on how complicated the questions they are or uncomplicated they are. But please know that every question submitted is read, and we look for themes, and the themes help inform and shape the subject matters we cover in future services. Thank you for participating in this time. Thank you for participating. If you need another moment and a minute or two and are still writing, you can get your questions to an usher within the next couple of minutes. They'll still be included.
As we head into our time of weekly offering, today our partner organization around sharing the collection is Best Buddies. The Best Buddies program on the University of Michigan's campus matches U of M students with peers from Washtenaw County who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, IDD, to form one-on-one friendships. They host inclusive monthly events and attend outings in the Ann Arbor community. Please join me in welcoming Lydia Goff, advisor of U of M's Best Buddies chapter, and Ann Moeller, public relations officer for U of M's Best Buddies chapter.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today and selecting the University of Michigan's Best Buddies chapter to be your April offering recipient. My name is Lydia Goff, and this is my dear friend, Ann Moeller, and we are leaders of U of M's Best Buddies chapter and share a passion for the inclusion of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, or IDD. U of M's Best Buddies chapter is part of the larger international organization, Best Buddies, which was founded in 1989 by Anthony Kennedy Shriver. Our mission is to establish a global volunteer movement that creates opportunities for one-to-one friendships, integrated employment, leadership development, and inclusive living for individuals with IDD. These 4 pillars of the organization represent our efforts to end the social and economic isolation that people with IDD face in this world. The IDD community that Best Buddies serves includes, but is not limited to, people with Down syndrome, autism, Fragile X, and many other disabilities. In U of M's Best Buddies chapter, we represent the friendship component of Best Buddies, in which we match community members with IDD to U of M students to form genuine friendships. U of M's chapter has been around since 1992 and currently has nearly 300 total members. Every month we host inclusive events to bring our community together, as well as foster opportunities for the one-to-one friendships amongst our buddies to grow stronger.
My name is Ann Moeller. I am in U of M Best Buddies and have had some really great opportunities being in this chapter, such as being on the board for 12 years, having some really great peer buddies, and so much more. Without Best Buddies, people with disabilities are stuck at home a lot and don't have a lot to do.
Thank you so much for your support. For more information, please visit bestbuddies.org/Michigan.
Thanks so much for your incredible work in our community, Ann and Lydia, and for sharing with us today. Friends, I invite you to join me in supporting Best Buddies today in one of several ways. If you're here in person, you can drop cash or check into the baskets as they are passed. If you're interested in a more digital experience, you can text UUAA to 73256. Again, that's 73256. Or visit us online at uuaa.org/giving and select Share the Collection. In whatever manner you decide to give, I thank you for your financial generosity and your commitment to strengthening relationships within our community between partners, nonprofit, and service organizations. Together, we work to make our community a better place for all. I would now like to invite our ushers forward as we gratefully receive today's offering. Thank you so much, Chalice singers. That was beautiful. I now invite you all to rise in body or in spirit as the ushers come forward and we dedicate our offering. Would you please join me in saying our words together? To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these, our offerings. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thanks again to our Chalice singers for a beautiful piece that you sang, and also our guests from Best Buddies. So grateful to have you with us. The thread of commonality between both what Best Buddies is doing and what our Chalice singers just sang are one of our congregation's priorities is radical welcome and radical inclusivity. So you're kind of seeing that brought alive in real time in our service, the ways in which we really care about each and every person and seek to live more fully into that caring. So I offer to share as the opening question for our Question Box Sunday. Reverend Manish, how was your sabbatical, or what did you do on your sabbatical? As ongoing members of our community know, I had a 5-month sabbatical, and what I can share from those 5 months, it's nothing I can capture really in 2 or 3 minutes, but you will be hearing regularly about things that occurred during that time, experiences or new insights that I gained, likely for months, if not a couple of years to come still. It was that profound and that meaningful. And to give you just a little bit of a taste of that, I'm someone who, for my adult life, I have been in very people-intensive and people-engaged careers. So working as a teacher, diplomacy, ministry, you're constantly engaging with people in these professions. And out of those 5 months, I had 3 month-long thereabout periods where I was pretty much by myself, which is the opposite of what I have done for most of my adult life professionally. And I'm sure some of you have had this experience of deep and extended time by yourself like that. I have not. And what I can tell you is, in such deep and extended time with you, yourself, and I, you get to see every part of you. The parts of you that are beautiful, lovely, inspiring, worth lifting up for the whole world to see, and the parts of you that you know exist that are not so great, that need some polishing or some additional evolution and growth. You see all of it. So you'll be hearing more about some of my experiences and insights in weeks, months, years to come. But as soon as the end of this month, at the end of the month we have a service honoring the themes of Passover, and that'll be one of the first Sundays you'll hear a little bit more in depth about my time on my sabbatical and what some of it entailed. So thank you. Thank you for just the support of this community to do something so deeply enriching. I'm very, very grateful. Our first question out of the box. I wonder if members of the National Rifle Association ever worry that their loved ones would be victims of a mass shooting. There are a lot of things I could say about that. But actually the most profound thing that I think I want to offer, I appreciate that this question is a wondering, because the wondering is acknowledging a disconnect, a relational disconnect. This person hasn't asked somebody who might be a member of the National Rifle Association that question. And that is a pattern that is repeated in our society at the present time, where those that might hold differing views or experiences than our own, we are generally not having deep and meaningful conversations with such individuals. This is true whether one identifies as politically liberal or politically conservative or politically in the middle. It kind of doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter what the issue is. We have narrowed our circles of social interaction increasingly over 20 or 30 years, to the point where we are primarily interacting with people who are, by and large, in agreement with us on most things, if not all things, and this is a problem. So I particularly thank this individual for the acknowledgement that's in this question, that you haven't asked somebody who might hold this opinion. And I'm not a member of the NRA, I've never owned a gun, I can't make up an answer for you on this, but I want to honor that you don't know. And it's probably not just on this issue alone, it's probably on a bunch of issues, and this could be true for any of us. And so the invitation I would offer is, we need to step out of our echo chamber bubbles when we can. It can feel a bit scary. Believe me, I feel that same sense of unsettledness and scariness as well when I do this. And yet, how are we ever going to forge any sense of deeper understanding in this culture if we don't take the risk that is needed to learn more about people whose life experiences are very different than our own? So thank you. Thank you for asking a question that is very important about the time we're living in. Really appreciate it. I'm confused about the concept of respect. Everyone wants it, but doesn't want to provide it in return. People do not identify it within their own self, community, or environment. How can we teach, role model, and engage in respect more efficiently? Well, this is directly connected to the last question that came up, isn't it? So, one of the things that it's a knee-jerk instinctive thing inside us human beings, when we encounter the person who has that very different opinion or life experience than our own, we go into debate mode and we want to convince them that they've missed something. In other words, we want to convince them that they're wrong, or that their opinion or stance about something is not fully formed. That's not respectful. That's actually being pushy about what you already believe. Which, first off, you don't need to do, because our lives are so narrow at this point in time. You're already involved in an echo chamber of friends and social interaction where folks mostly agree with you. So you actually don't need to be pushy with other people about getting them to conform to what you already believe, because day-to-day, most of the people we hang out with already believe or are in the same ballpark as us. We can actually use that as a strength to be a bit more gracious with people who hold differing opinions, needs, or life experiences. So what does that look like in terms of respectful dialogue and interchange? I'd say even if that energy will come up, because it's so common in our culture right now, the energy will come up that you think the person's wrong, and you want them to know better or do better or think better. Well, recognize in yourself that that's aggression. Buddhism names that as aggression. Wanting to impose your worldview on somebody else is aggression. It is aggressive. And one of the primary teachings of Buddhism is to quell our own aggressive instincts. Start to work with them. Start to soften them. So first recognize in yourself that what's coming up is an aggressive tendency, an aggressive energy. And then we have to work with softening it, making it a little, that's coming up. I really strongly disagree with this person. I think they've missed a whole bunch of stuff. Let me breathe into that. Then get curious. Not from a place of wanting to change the other person's opinion, need, or experience, but genuine learning. Okay, why do they think this thing? Why have they not thought about all these other things that I think about? I can ask a curious question. Could you share more about how you arrived at that opinion or experience or need that you've just conveyed? How did you arrive at that? What informs that? I'm curious. Would you share more? Guess what? After they've shared, then, with no aggression, with no trying to convince the person they're wrong, you can share, I have a very different experience around this. And I've had these kinds of interactions. I understand these things about being human or about the world. So I've arrived at a bit of a different conclusion. I understand what you've just shared, and this is where I'm at. We can actually have that kind of respectful interaction with no intention of changing another person's opinion about anything. I strongly encourage us to try to practice that, because we Unitarian Universalists do this too. This is not just about the wider culture. It is about the wider culture. It's also about us, and we do this at times with one another in community. So great. Practice this with your beloveds in community. This is a practice space. Religious gatherings or community are often called a place of spiritual practice. We get to practice these qualities of being with one another. Practice this kind of respect, this kind of generosity, because it's safer to do it with people who you mostly agree with anyway than when you're sitting on an airplane and you're with the person from some very different part of the country who you likely don't agree with about 90% of the stuff. So practice it. Practice it with people who mostly agree with you. It's a good place to start. Great question. How can we Unitarian Universalists navigate the tension between honoring beloved community, i.e. wanting to be peacemakers or peace builders, with challenging complacency? I can't read this last part, sorry. Seeking a more just world, that's what this says. Okay, in challenging complacency, you're hopefully promoting the seeking of a more just world. Okay. Give me a moment. My brain needs to process this. There's a tension between between peaceability and then challenging complacency in service to a more just world. That's what this is. Okay, this question is. Yeah, but feel like we just talked about this. So it's a skill. It's a skillfulness. Yeah, this is also true about us Unitarian Universalists, but also the wider world. Okay, how often have we done this? That you meet on an airplane or somewhere in the wider world, somebody says the thing that we 110% disagree with, and then we just clam up and are quiet. We could be confused. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to make a scene. Well, that's about your internal stuff, first off. So I acknowledge that. You're going to feel some stuff when you encounter the person who has a very different need, experience, or opinion. We have to work on our own inner reaction first. From a place of working with that, making that a little gentler, yes, then we can challenge. The complacency is the choosing not to do or say anything. How are any of us going to learn or grow? Actually, this is the fundamental premise of Unitarian Universalism. We are an incredibly diverse set of people from the perspective of opinions about spirituality, ethics, and life. Incredibly diverse. And there is no expectation that any two of us identically agree with one another. So this is a fundamental premise of Unitarian Universalism, that we come into community anyway, almost despite the fact that we will 100% guaranteed encounter those in our community that we disagree with. So, not allowing that to become complacency, not allowing that to become quietude, we have to first still the energy inside of us, then ask some curious questions. Tell me more about you, how you arrived at that. Without trying to convince anybody that they're wrong, let me tell you about me. I think that can be done quite well. By the way, we have a team that practices these skills in our community and is a resource for those wanting to learn more or may need such skills in their life. They're called the Living Our Values Team, LOVE for short, L-O-V, LOVE Team. This is why they exist. They exist to help us with exactly these types of needs and skills. Okay, next question. How do we live in the paradoxical balance of the beauties of the world with the raging horrors in the world? Oh my gosh, this is great. Thank you. You know, I live actively with this tension in a related but maybe slight twist of the lens kind of way. the future the human species is heading into, all the current data, all the current trajectory, it's not great. If you've been paying attention, I think we know this. And yet, so much beauty. There's so much beauty. There's so much to take heart in about who we are and what we are capable of doing still to change the data, to change some of that trajectory that our species is on. So this is exactly that, just a different way of stating the same thing. So I'll offer first, the language this individual has used is so poignant. The raging horrors, quote unquote. I find, rather than getting discouraged or despairing or resentful, why aren't we doing better? That's the resentment part. Why aren't we doing better? We should do better. The despair, or what that looks like, is there's nothing I can do. Things are so awful, there's nothing I can do. Rather than that, those are possibilities, and I go to those places too occasionally. I think more in the center is just acceptance. Things are not great right now. They're not great. So the other side of that is I encounter human beings who don't want to even look at the reality, all the scientific data around us that is not great. It's just going to magically get figured out. That's not grounded either. So, magical thinking on one end and despair, resignation, resentment on the other end. In between, I want to offer the language and the framing of acceptance. Accept the reality that exists. Be honest about it, which is also about honestly facing where we are at as a species, what is actually happening right now. We have to be brutally honest with ourselves. Magical thinking is not going to solve anything, and burying our heads in the sand and saying, I give up, is also not going to solve anything. So start in the middle with brutal, honest acceptance. This is where we're at today. This is where we're at today. And then, just as I mentioned, and just as this individual mentions, there is so much beauty, there is so much love, there are so many human beings trying to do so much good for others. We heard from some this morning with best buddies. No act of goodness is ever wasted, and our world needs every ounce of it. Let the beauty of that sink in, let it register, don't just hear it and dismiss it. We need to let it really sink in, because that potential for doing good in the world exists within each of us. And from that place of acceptance, yes, this is the world as it really is, then we show up. Let that beauty fuel you and remind you that we can do better. We're capable of doing better. We need to do better for the sake of all the little ones, all the children, all the grandchildren among us, right? Beautiful question. So work with the person named this as a paradox. Work with the paradox. Yes, paradox in the sense of it's diverging energies, but work with it, and I'd say start in the middle. Start with acceptance. Ooh, this person did a do-over, scribbling in a restatement. What is the definition of racism from a Unitarian Universalist perspective? When I Google it, there are different answers. Fantastic. Yeah, I don't know that there's one definition for a concept like that, right? So we Unitarian Universalists, we use intentionally a plurality of language to talk about human experience, right? So if you hear the word faith, there's no one definition of the word faith. That this is what faith means for every Unitarian Universalist. There's no one definition of the holy. If you hear the phrase the holy used, there's no one definition that magically applies to every Unitarian Universalist. Some Unitarian Universalists won't use those languages or those phrases I just threw out. Many do. And they may have differing interpretations of what that means to them. It's a little bit in that ballpark. Can I define racism, first off, for all Unitarian Universalism everywhere? Probably not. It's not probably, I can't. Yeah, there's no probably there. But, I was having a conversation with one of my spiritual teachers in the past week to 10 days, and he, spontaneously provided this amazing phraseology or framework that I hadn't really thought of. I was describing an experience of race and power dynamics and all this stuff, and did I use the word? I think I may have used the word privilege as well in this conversation him and I were having. And he said something about authority status, socioeconomic power or resources. There's always an imbalance and an power over kind of issue. He stated it much more eloquently than I'm able to do right at this moment, but it was a beautiful phrasing of an inequality that has multiple dimensions to it, which can include status, authority, power, roles in society, access to economic privileges or resources, educational and health resources. There's a lot to it. On multiple dynamics and multiple valences, there are things that we must consider in terms of this. But what I'd also offer, this is a profound question for us as folks living in the United States. There may be folks on the live stream who are in Canada or other countries, but for by and large being based here in the United States, this is a nation that was founded on a concept started by the Catholic Church, by the way, a doctrine of discovery, that if you encounter people who are not Christian, who look different than you, they don't count. You can take their land, you can kill them, you can do whatever, displace them, do whatever you want with them. That sense of religious orientation was carried over by the settlers that came to the United States from Europe and treated the indigenous populations here in a certain way. It was religiously, politically, and socially justified. The genocide against the indigenous people of North America was justified. Yeah, there's a racial component to that. They don't count for a whole lot of reasons. They're non-white. They're not Christian. They don't act civilized. My ancestors in India got a version of this at the hands of the British Empire, that we didn't count. Our ways were not as important as those that were discovered in the West or held in the West. So there's a lot of dimensions to this. I would say this is something that I certainly hope every Unitarian Universalist is actively wrestling with, and that you're coming up with your own individual understanding, not just of the concept, because it's not only the concept. The question is phrased intellectually of what's a definition. Hey, come up with whatever definition you want. I'd say then do something. That's actually far more important than whether you agree with my personal definition or not. I don't really care whether we agree with each other's definitions of race. Do something. Come up with your own, and then more importantly, what are you going to do about it? Whatever definition you come up with, what are you going to do about it? Because this is a nation that was founded on the basis of genocide and slavery. And the impacts of that legacy have not gone away. So what are we going to do about it? All right, next question. How does one keep faith when everything personally and globally is so difficult? Yeah, thank you. This is a little bit related to some of the question about raging horrors, and beauty. Yeah, can I point us back to that question a little bit? I want to point us back to that question. Notice that earlier individual named beauty as something that they're also actively noticing in the world. And here you've asked faith, the possibility of how do we hold. Faith can mean many things. This is another thing I often invite us. Come up with your own definition. Hey, if the word doesn't work for you, that's also fine. But there's many ways to understand that term. I approach the question of faith as trust. What are we placing our trust in when everything feels so difficult? and the challenges before us as human beings are so huge, I believe we can trust the beauty that we also see, of which love is a part of that beauty, by the way, the best potential within us as human beings. We can trust and have faith in that beauty, but we must stop to notice it. So this is a piece that came up in the first service that hasn't come up here yet in the second. We are a people here in the United States who live in immense plenitude. The vast majority of human beings do not have access to the level of comfort, convenience, leisure time, access to entertainment, technologies that we, in general, on average, enjoy here in the United States. And it's easy to take, and we do, often, take all of that for granted. Vast amount of stuff that we take for granted. Do not take beauty for granted. Don't. Please don't. And it could be as simple as the beauty of voices coming together to sing song and offer it as a gift to us in community. Please don't take that for granted. That matters. Millennia-old human tradition, a way of connecting with one another. Don't take that for granted. You're simply being here, another millennia-old human tradition. Us coming together in an act of trust in community, hoping that we'll be held in love and care by others if we were in need, and showing up and offering ourselves in that same way. I'll be here for you. Don't take that for granted. That's incredibly beautiful. Don't take that for granted. We live in a society that instructs us on purpose. It's the basis of consumerism, the worst aspects of our capitalism, that whatever we have is not good enough. If we buy into that, and it's subconsciously so easy to buy into that, how will we ever notice beauty? How will we ever notice community showing up for one another, song offered as a gift, a loving hug from a friend? How will we ever notice when we're caught up in, I don't have enough? Nothing I already have is enough. So, thank you. That's a very profound question. I feel like I want to sneak one more question, and I'll try. Maybe it's an easy one. It never is at the end. But you never know. Maybe I'll get lucky. I got a blank one. No. Yeah, this one is blank. Okay. All right. Is guilt a productive emotion? There's more to that, but I'm just going to stick with that because that's enough. Whew. Yeah, I wrestle with this too. We all do. Okay, so let me first go to an extreme, because this is in me also. Things come up from 30 years ago, some mistake I made when I was a teenager or in college, and I'm still beating myself up about, give yourself a break. Come on. But I literally have to say that to myself, come on. I'm not even the same person I was 30 years ago. And the stupid thing comes up, what a jerk you were. Yeah, I was. But I'm also not the same person I was whenever that happened. So just give yourself a break. The brain does this. I don't know why. Believe me, I wish it would stop. So one of my spiritual teachers says, have a little conversation with that part of you. Oh, you're here again. You're here. Do you have anything new to say? You don't? Okay, thank you. All right. But then let's go from that to, yes, the day-to-day stuff. Yeah. We screw up. That's about being human too. That's okay. I make mistakes. You make mistakes. It's okay. We actually would do better if we hid those things less. We get so defensive and we try to hide all these little things we get wrong. And we do so much better when we don't try to hide it and slide over it, avoid it. And that guilt, it just pricks at us. It elbows us to notice. You know you could have done better. Just notice. Guess what? That's part of the best of us. We can acknowledge that. And by the way, that little nagging elbowing that goes on, it stops when you go back to the person and say, you know, I want to, can we revisit that conversation from 2 weeks ago? I think I could have done that a little differently or a little better. Then the elbowing stops because you just did better. So guilt is a natural human emotion, and I'd say in that day-to-day stuff when it comes up, any of us, myself too, we could do better with being a little less defensive, listen to it, learn from it. And when we listen to it and learn from it, and then do better, it stops elbowing us. That's worthy, it's a good thing, it's productive. Learn from it. And if you're not sure, then we have friends, we have people in community, we have people we trust that we can talk to and say, hey, I'm elbowing myself around this thing. Does that feel justified or not? You know, we can seek counsel, we can seek advice from people we trust. Then do better. But then the other end of, once we've done better, and sometimes we can't. If 30, 40, 50 years have passed, there's no going back to college and fixing the thing I did 30 years ago. Believe me, there are times when I've tried to Google people from 30 years ago, because I would apologize if I could. I can't find them. So forgive yourself. That's one of the hardest things we can do is actually forgive ourselves for the thing that we would do more about and there's nothing else to do now. Then hold that in your heart, forgive yourself, and hold the commitment to do better. Thank you. I love our community's questions. They're always so deep, so meaningful. Know that all of the questions will get reviewed by me personally, and beautiful. Really appreciate each of you.
Thank you, Chalice singers. That was beautiful. I really love those question box services because it's really great to hear what questions we all hold together in this community, and you don't often get to hear that just in the social hall. So I like for them to come out of the question box. And I really am so happy to have you back, Manish. I always learn something from your thoughtful answers and your kind of spin and angle that makes me think more. And I figured that you may also have some questions for us, like, what have you been up to in those past 5 months? What have you been doing and thinking? So, in addition to a question box, we also have an answer box that you all helped us make. So this is what we've been up to in the past 5 months while you were out. Happy reading. We are very happy to have you back. And for all of you, there's cake in the social hall to add to the celebrations.
Thank you, Anita. I have homework now. That's great. Could I invite you to rise and body your spirit? It's been some time since I've had the opportunity to invite you to do this, so take a moment and look around this sanctuary. Look at who else is here. Those of you online, you're in our hearts as well. We're holding you here with us. These are your companions, your travelers on life's journey, the folks with whom you get to practice being human and keep doing better with, honing that skillfulness around. Know that as you go into a new week that you don't do so alone, that you're held in spirit by the embrace of this community, which is cheering you on to be the very best version of yourself that you can be until we are together again. Go in love and go in peace. Amen.